But I got out of the place, and everything was kind of okay for a while. After I graduated high school, one of the things that I had to deal with was, where do I go? What do I do? Because I had this problem. Well, I wanted to actually serve in the military, regardless of whether or not I had this issue. And I was thinking at the time, well, there's all kinds of good things about serving. I have good financial benefits and all that stuff, and it kind of makes you feel like you're doing something useful with your life and so forth. And I also thought at the time, I can't live like this with this problem. It's excruciating. I can't hardly be around people and not be extremely upset all the time. So I thought to myself, well, I'll just kind of go balls to the wall with this issue, and if I don't solve it, you know, I'll at least give it everything I've got. I feel like if I'm infused in the situation where it's just there all the time, that you've got to eventually get used to it, right? So that's kind of what I was thinking. But of course I never really got used to it, but somehow I managed to get through boot camp at least. I think it's because there was so much distracting stuff going on that it kind of helped me to divert my attention away from everybody's noises, regardless of the fact that I always heard them in the back of my head and it never went away. But eventually, after I graduated boot camp, I did wind up in a bad situation where I forgot that I had to stand watch, and people got really upset with me, and I was in a bad state, and I was really upset myself and felt really bad about myself. And somebody was really doing this horribly annoying cough at the worst time, and I wound up it's almost like a reaction. You just bring your hands up to your face and just kind of curl your fingers, and you wind up scratching your face. I don't really want to. It's just you get so upset that it's almost like you're trying to, you have to try and dig this irritation out of your mind somehow. And of course it's stupid and illogical to think that way or do anything like that, but that's the problem. When you get so upset, you don't really think right. So the petty officers, noticed that there was something going on, even though I tried to conceal it a little bit with some ointment, but they still saw it, and I kind of stupidly explained to them what my problem was, and I wound up at another freaking psych ward on the military base, and I was there for a while, just actually a couple weeks this time. It was a little bit easier the second time around. There weren't quite so many smokers there. It was mostly just a place for people who were having issues, psychological issues, being in the military. And regardless of the fact that the doctor who saw me decided to go on ahead and recommend that I be discharged, I tried to write a letter of rebuttal, which I did write a letter of rebuttal, which basically states I want to stay in, and this is an issue for me, but it's not like gonna be something that's gonna drive me crazy and like kill somebody or anything like that. It's just a really bad irritant for me, and I'm dealing with it as best as I can. But that wasn't really good enough, so I wound up with a medical discharge. So after that, I went back home and started working whatever job I could. I did mostly construction work and stuff like that, factory work or whatever. And there was a couple jobs where I wound up being so irritated that I couldn't work at the job anymore because it was just pure hell for like 8 hours straight. But the vast majority of the jobs that I worked went out of business because, you know, the economy and also the Midwest. That's just the way it is. So I thought to myself, you know, I am good with design work. I want to design. I want to do computer work and stuff like that. So I decided to go to college. And of course, school, you know, it was really difficult for me. But I bared it as best as I could. I went to a local community college to kind of get my GPA up because I barely passed high school. And I thought to myself, you know, I have a little bit of control over at least showing my agitation on my face, because that's what people with misophonia do. You do everything that you can to at least make sure that people can't see it, regardless of how upset you are. And I did eventually. I passed my classes, I got good grades, and I wound up going to Kansas State University. I got accepted into their landscape architecture, not their landscape architecture program. I got accepted into their School of Architecture. After you've been there for a year or so, you apply to whatever discipline you're trying to study within the School of Architecture. And after being there for 1 year, my grades were not good enough to the point where I could apply to landscape architecture within the School of Architecture. And in fact, they were so bad that even if I had been there for a whole nother year, I still wouldn't have been able to get a good enough GPA, even if I'd gotten straight A's. It was so distressing, and I was living at a dormitory. Stupid, right? Well, again, this was my second chance at attempting to put myself in a situation where if I'm around it enough, I should be able to get used to it. Because I thought if I'd stayed in the military, then eventually I might have gotten used to it. But I got kicked out of there, so I thought, well, at least they shouldn't kick me out of school if I can keep my grades up. Well, that was a great idea, but the school was extremely competitive, and with my distractibility combined with my ADHD, really a lot of difficulty reading and keeping up on track, on schedule and everything, I just couldn't make it, so I wound up having to leave the school.